nice big buck in the bottom of this drainage. About 300 yards away. He's got a bunch of does with him. But he's just feeding along. Let's get some footage and then let's figure out what to do.
December in Arizona is a great opportunity to hunt some mule deer. We get one over-the-counter tag with 3 different seasons or chances to harvest a buck. And if for some reason you haven't been able to connect in the January rut hunt or the late summer velvet hunt, well, there's no better way to finish out the year than to grab your pack and spend a few days on a solo backpacking hunt chasing exactly what the tag says, any antlered deer.
Okay, well, this is about the time I thought I'd be in my glassing point, right at first light. And we still have a couple miles to go. These creeks are really slowing me down. And also, generally, I'm very pleased with my thick, luscious beard. Keeps my face warm. But nobody warns you about how uncomfortable it is when it freezes. Like, your breath just forms these little icicles. And every time I move my face, I can feel them breaking apart. I also use a coconut oil-based beard balm, which you wanted to know. And I find that also kind of congeals and freezes when it's super cold like it is right now. It is in the high 20s at the moment. And I hear more water. So I am praying there's not another massive river crossing. I'm just finally getting feeling back in my toes after the last one. Here we go. All part of the adventure. So I've been at my glassing point for 3 minutes, still unpacking. I was on the quest for dry socks, and just with my naked eye, spotted a few deer feeding up under a tree just across the drainage. So haven't even been able to put up a tripod and see if there's antlers in the bunch. But that's amazing. That is a good start to a cold, wet morning. Last year when I was in here, this definitely seemed to be like what they call the nursery area. So a lot of does. Bucks that I were seeing were little forks, probably from last year, still hanging around with Mom. But it's okay if a big buck shows up, because it might be around the rut. The rut is weird in Arizona. It seems like it kicks in different times depending on which part of the state you're in. And there's endless debate online about when it starts, when it ends. Doesn't matter. Point is, anything with antlers is getting stalked this weekend. Oh, and the sun is just now peeking up over the mountain. It's going to help warm me up. Okay, enough chatting. I need to get the last of my gear situated and see what we have over there. We've got a buck. All right, I'm gonna take my buddy's advice and try to move in on him while he's still moving. But he's moving at a pretty good clip towards me right now, so I'm gonna give it a minute just to try to figure out which direction he might be going. But I've always tried to bed them and stalk them in their beds. And my friend, who's much more successful than I am, says he likes to move in while they're still feeding along because they're distracted. They're making their own noise as they move along and eat. It makes a lot of sense. He's killed a lot more deer than I have. So I'm going to try to get some footage of him for a minute. And then let's see what we can do. Well, I think that buck I was chasing gave me the slip. Haven't turned him up. But I could have sworn I was hearing something off this drop where I couldn't see. So I tried to creep up next to this bush to not be seen. Man, if I had maybe had one more step where I could have seen, there's this coos buck right down there that I blew out. Also a little forky, but I'm in this unique spot in this unit where there's both mule deer and coos deer. And the tag is good for any antlered deer here, so I could shoot either one. But that would have been pretty awesome to nail a coos. I've never shot a coos deer. Definitely not with a bow. Anyway, that is an exciting start to morning one. I'm going to head back to where I left all my gear. At the moment, I'm not exactly sure why I left it, other than I was trying to hurry. Settle in, get a snack, start glassing again, and see what other bucks I can turn up. Holy crap. Nice big buck in the bottom of this drainage. About 300 yards away. He's got a bunch of does with him. But he's just feeding along. Let's get some footage and then let's figure out what to do. This little drainage that I wanted to get to without spooking them. So now I've got a good wind and they can't see me. So I'm just trying to get to the bottom of this draw to where there's all that those thick junipers. Use those as cover to close the distance. This is by far the biggest buck I've ever seen in here.
Unfortunately, what happened next is that my GoPro died. So you can't see what happens all too often as I crept in, one tree at a time, slowly moving in on this buck, and one of his 15 does started blowing at me at 104 yards, and the jig was up. Those deer packed up their stuff and moved on out of the area. So I licked my wounds, hiked back up the hill, finally set up my camp, grabbed some lunch, and then spent the rest of the afternoon glassing and not turning much up. So I spent the night hanging by the fire, drying out my boots finally, and making a plan for the next morning.
Well, I've been here glassing for an hour officially, and I haven't turned up a single deer. I heard the same javelina from yesterday snorting around right over in the same spot where they were. That's been it. And so I'm left with all the usual questions. Where'd they go? Why aren't they here? Are they here but they're just not moving around yet? It is super cold and windy this morning. It was 33 according to my watch, and the wind really started ripping middle of the night. So the north-facing slope that I'm looking at, which is where they're usually hanging out, is on the windy side. So maybe they've moved on, or they're just staying hunkered down. So I think I'm going to eat a little more food to fuel up for that hike, while I take another pass with the binos. And then my camp is just over there. I should go back and shed a layer or two, because I'm wearing all the clothes that I have. But that's the plan. A little more glassing, maybe something cool happens. And if not, I've got some hiking to do. Ceases to amaze me how quickly things change out here. I was sitting here for an embarrassingly long amount of time, really just kind of debating if I wanted to grab all my gear and walk down there, or just like grab my binos and my bow and a camera and just walk over. While I was sitting here thinking about that, and then, like 12 other things, and almost falling asleep, like suddenly 3 deer appear in the bottom of this drainage that I can just see with my naked eye. It was just a doe and her 2 fawns. But still, like, where did they come from? I've been sitting here. I've been staring at this hillside the whole time. I just thoroughly glassed it twice. And out of nowhere, these deer show up. I was just watching those does feed around, and I was kind of keeping an eye to see if maybe a buck was in tow, and he was just gonna kind of like lazily come out and not lose track of him. And then Captain Orange Hat came pushing his mountain bike down this old road that runs through the bottom of this drainage. And he spooked him up, and he's still down there trying to glass him, probably trying to confirm there's no bucks in the group, which there's not. But I would like him to get out of the bottom of this drainage, so that maybe other deer who haven't been spooked by him could move on down as we get into the evening. But as far as I can tell, he's made this his new home. So I'm going to keep an eye on him. Fortunately, he's wearing a blaze orange hat, and it'll be easy to keep track of him, because that's going to affect what I decide to do for the evening. Seriously, so many other hunters, which it's public land. We share it. We are blessed to have access to it. Don't want to be that guy. Just saying, this spot, it's more overrun than last year. which makes me sad. Oh well, now I get to watch him. Which, speaking of other hunters, what is the etiquette about watching another hunter when they don't know you're here, but you can see them? Because, like, I always keep an eye on them, just I'm trying to see where they're going and if I need to adjust my plans. But it always feels really weird to just watch another dude through binoculars for a long time. So, I'm curious your thoughts. How long is too long to watch another man through your binoculars? Well, ending day 2, of course there had to be a story. I was glassing that side of the ridge and was making my last pass when I saw Orange Hat come back to his bike, and he was going to ride his bike back down the road through the middle of that. So I thought, well, nothing's happening there tonight in the last few minutes of daylight. Popped up over to come back to camp, where I thought, okay, every time I've come back to camp, I've seen deer. I came carefully. I was scanning where they had been, didn't see anything. Apparently I didn't look close enough because I dropped my little folding chair on the floor and then suddenly caught movement in my vision. And there were 3 deer, one of whom was a decent fork, running away, and they were within bow range of my camp. I'm not saying that had I seen them, I would have been able to make something happen, but it's theoretically feasible that I could have just stopped where I was if they hadn't seen me yet, drawn, and if he had given me a lane, he would have been at the far end of my effective range, but he would have been there. And we'd be having steaks over the fire tonight. It was so close. He was right there. Okay, here's the final shot. I am down the hill from camp, where almost every time I've come back to camp, I've seen deer walking across. It's another cold and windy morning, so maybe that's messing with them. I don't know, but it's about 9 o'clock. It's New Year's Eve. We have people coming over tonight, so I mentally have given myself till 10. And if nothing's happened by then, or I'm not stalking a buck, it's time to pack up camp and get out of here. I did, just upon arriving at this spot, I rolled my ankle real bad. So, hopefully that I can, seems like it's gonna be all right. Haven't tried to stand up since I did it though. So that could make the hike out even more fun. But I've got an hour, and I'm just up into this tree where it's a little bit brushy but pretty open, so I'm kind of banking most of my chances on a deer happening to walk by, kind of ambush style. But gonna sit up here, put some sugar in my body, because that always makes me feel better, and see what the next hour brings. Okay, it's officially over. It ended on the most anticlimactic morning since I've been here. But I am going to see about this ankle. I'm going to pack up camp, hit the trail. My plan was initially to hike with my bow in my hand, because there was tracks and sign all along the trail on the way in. But I'm feeling like just walking around a little bit on this thing. It's probably much smarter to strap the bow to my pack and just go with trekking poles. It's for some extra support and pain management. Anyway, saw deer every day, chased a bunch of bucks, had some fun, and the beauty of Arizona is the 2020 tag starts tomorrow. as does my javelina tag, which I saw them as well. So I'll be back. We'll just keep trying, and eventually it's all going to click and an arrow will fly. So this is the massive, like 4-part river crossing that almost made me turn back when I first got here Sunday morning. I took my boots off and waded through like a smart person, but I don't want to do that right now. And with this ankle wrapped and tied extra tight and feeling supported, I'm not going to risk it. So I'm just going to trudge through, get my boots soaking wet, and drive home in dry socks, because it could be worse. Of course, this whole thing looked a lot different by headlamp and when your feet are actively freezing. All right, phase 1. Into phase 2. And then it's just 3 and 4. Seriously, this is my 3rd time back in here. And last year, the 2 times I was in here, this was barely a trickle on one portion of this. It looks deceptively shallower up there. It's probably some catch that I'm not expecting, but here we go. Ah, here it comes. Yes. Up to the ankles. Just how I wanted it. This is the big one. It moves quick and it's deep. So we're just gonna go. Whoa. Yep. Victory. Ugh. Oh, those are heavier. My boots. I don't know what innuendo could be there. Probably something about balls. But that's not what this is. This is an appropriate channel. Actually, speaking of balls, story for the rest of the world. Just a few days ago, we took our kids to see Jumanji 2. It's delightful, it was hilarious. And if you've seen it, there's that whole scene towards the end where they're in an elevator and they're talking about Kevin Hart's balls and how he's a eunuch. He has to pretend that he doesn't have any. I'm sitting next to my 5-year-old daughter who begins to understand what they're talking about. And she turns to me, grinning and giggling, and says, "Dad, I was literally born with no balls." She's not wrong. And I hope she never figures out how to pronounce literally correct, because it's adorable. All right, this is the final uphill slog to where the Jeep is parked. So I'm gonna put this down and focus.